Roll call, please.
Councilmember Murray,
Present.
Councilmember Ryan,
Here.
Councilmember Payne Donovan,
Present.
Mayor Matsumoto Wright,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall,
Here.
Councilmember Sonmore.
Here.
Councilmember Woodard.
Accounted for.
That concludes roll call.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight? I see a lot of people here.
David Chan.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and the council member and the staff in here. Today I come to you, in front of you, as an individual citizen, David Chan. Of course, for full disclosure, I'm a fire commissioner for 17 years. But I'm going to off-script a little bit. Jerry Smith was my very good friend. He and I worked with SNOCOM and eventually merged Snow 911 and worked on the finance committee. Of course, what I miss most is the donuts. His famous donuts, just wonderful. I think it's appropriate the tribute to the plaza to him. And second thing is that as a citizen, I'm so happy that you guys have 91.1% voting to join the family. I still remember when I first started in Snow 911, we just took the Fire District 1 just have a contract with Mountlake Terrace. And then, of course, we were always jokingly that we took over your liability, which is chief writing. And, of course, you know that our current chief office has come from Mountlake Terrace. So I really appreciate that you guys give us that opportunity. So here, I'm here to promote you. We have formed an organization called, nonprofit organization. It's called Asian Service Center. My colleague in here, Will Chan, is much better speaker than me, so I'll let him tell you what it's all about. But can you imagine that you, say, immigrate into Greece, and everything is Greek to you, and you don't know the language too well. You're just starting there with Greek as a second language. You don't know how to get a driver license. You don't know how to get the system. And even though you're pretty smart, but you will not become a very productive citizen, so to speak. So what our organization do is helping the transition of these people into really expedite the process. We model this after an organization called Chinese Information Center down in Seattle in the King County area. They have started with more than 50 years ago. We started with just UW social worker and just volunteer, and they now become a really huge organization. And they basically, not only for Chinese, they serve everybody, any newcomer. Lately, they got the Ukrainian, Russians, Afghanistan. So eventually, we want to go with that. But right now, we just have a very, because we know the Asian culture pretty well, and so we're going to start with that. But we basically will not turn away anyone. It doesn't matter you're from New York or New Delhi. We still all help you, point you out the right place. So our inaugural ceremony is on June 3rd, and down in Edmonds Waterfront Center. I assume all of you have been there. It's a beautiful place. So one thing we promise to you is fun. We're going to have lots of food, different Asian food, a lot of entertainment, dances, and ceremony, and hopefully that will be a good summer day, and everybody just enjoy it. It starts at 10 o'clock, and it will be finished around 12 o'clock. So I hope all of you can come, and we will send you an invitation again, so hopefully you can just get everybody just say yes. Even now, just come over, because we want all the dignitaries of Snohomish County to come. Of course, all of your dignitaries, so please come. Thank you for the time.
Will Chen, and you two will have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Will Chen. I'm a resident. I live on the other side of Lake Bellinger. Appreciate the work that you do. That park is much, much better than the golf course, I tell you. I played there on the golf course before, and it's not too much fun. The park is way better. I'm here to let you know that, like David mentioned, we form a nonprofit aging service center, and the purpose is to help the new immigrants to integrate into our society at an expedited rate so they can become a more productive taxpayers to help our city generate more money. So Aging Service Center, ASC, empowers and enables members of the aging and other underserved communities in achieving their full potentials and contributing to the larger society through culturally and linguistically appropriate services and programs. Currently, our services include healthcare access, senior care, family support, and youth development. And under those programs, there are multiple sub-programs under each area. More information can be accessed through agingservicecenter.wa.org. As a fourth-generation immigrant myself, I came to this country when I was 24 with very limited English skills at the time. I ended up in the middle of the cornfield in Iowa. My friend picked me up and picked me up from the airport, went straight to the Chinese restaurant, hand me an apple and said, "Welcome to America." And I really struggled at the beginning to understand where to go for school, what to do, get a driver's license, even open a bank account. It's really difficult to manage access to all the services that was available. So being gone through that process myself, one of my dream today is to have this kind of service available to people who needed it. And it will benefit us all. Not only the people who are receiving the services, but also for municipal government like us. I know we never have enough resources to do anything that we want. There's never enough tax money to provide all the services. So Aging Service Center is a strategic partner that our municipal government can partner. And the reason we're here is just to let you, the dignitaries, and the community know that this service is available. And if anything else, just refer them to us. Of course, the kickoff event is on June 3rd. It's a Saturday from 10 to noon. We're going to have line dancing, some cultural performances, different kinds of Asian food. So please come. Thank you so much.
If there's anyone in the online audience who would like to speak, please use the hand raise tool. Going once, going twice. That concludes public comment.
All right, thank you. Next is the consent calendar, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to approve the consent calendar, items A through E.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. So next is we're going to read a few proclamations tonight, and the first one is going to be about the Law Enforcement Memorial Day Proclamation, and Mayor Pro Tem Brian Wall will read that one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All right, so City of Mountlake Terrace Proclamation for Law Enforcement Memorial Day. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15 as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which May 15 falls as National Police Week. And whereas the members of the law enforcement agency of the City of Mountlake Terrace play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of Mountlake Terrace. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property and by protecting them against violence and disorder. And whereas the men and women of the law enforcement agency of the City of Mountlake Terrace unceasingly provide a vital public service, now, therefore, the Mayor, Kyoko Matsumoto Wright, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 15, 2023 as Law Enforcement Memorial Day in the City of Mountlake Terrace. I further call upon the citizens of Mountlake Terrace to remember those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made their ultimate sacrifice in service to their community and have become disabled in the performance of duty. Signed this 15th day of May 2023 at the City of Mountlake Terrace, State of Washington.
Thank you. So are we going to present that? Thank you very much. That was our chief. Okay, next. No photos. Really? Shall we do an iPhone photo? You want to get into it? Well, not everybody has representation.
UMP?
You go.
UMP, sure?
Yes.
I mean, right there.
Phil to the rescue.
I'll get it.
Okay, but don't get the camera up above Chief Kaw's head.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you going to be our photographer for the night, except for when we...
All right. Wonderful. So next on the agenda is another proclamation, this time for the National Public Works Week, and our council member Steve Woodard is going to read that one.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just say this is, I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but really my favorite department. You don't get enough credit, and when you do get the credit, it's for the wrong reasons, right? People want to blame you for things, and the reality is, you know you're doing your job well when no one thinks about you. Well, this is a wonderful week to be thinking about you all intentionally. So, City of Mountlake Terrace Proclamation, National Public Works Week. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed community is vital to the efficient public works operation, such as water, sewer, storm, street, traffic control, and equipment rental, and whereas the health, safety, and comfort of the city, county, state, and country greatly depend on the public works facilities and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, are vitally dependent on the commitment, efforts, and skills of public work employees and elected officials, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public work departments is materially influenced by the public's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work these people perform. Now, therefore, on behalf of our Mayor, Kyoko Matsumoto Wright, and on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 21st through the 27th of 2023 as Public Works Week in the City of Mountlake Terrace. Signed this 15th day of May 2023 at the City of Mountlake Terrace, State of Washington.
And we have someone in the audience.
Do a selfie.
No.
We did just extend this contract.
You want to open it? You want to open it?
Yeah.
Open it to the proclamation.
If I could, on behalf of the 38 Public Works employees, I want to heartily thank you for this recognition and Councilmember Woodard's impassioned reading of it, as well as his other comments. I would just add simply that I agree. I think these people work often 24 hours during the day and on weekends when things come up, as you mentioned. They do it gladly, they do it happily, and it's work that not everybody wants to do, and that I think also underscores the importance of it. We really appreciate this recognition. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the proclamation for the Asian American Pacific Islander Month, and I will be reading that one. So, Asian American Pacific and Pacific Islander AAPI Heritage Month, whereas the month of May was chosen as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese citizen, Nakahama Manjiro, to the United States on May 7th, 1843, but also the anniversary of the May 10th, 1869 completion of the first transcontinental railroad built with the backbreaking labor of nearly 20,000 Chinese immigrants. And whereas, according to the United States Census Bureau, more than 10% of Mountlake Terrace's population, Asian American and Pacific Islander AAPI, and includes devoted community members who serve as artists, business owners, educators, healthcare professionals, lawyers and judges, clergy members, first responders, and military personnel. And whereas, we celebrate the achievements and contributions of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders that enrich our history, society, and culture, we must also acknowledge the darker aspect of the AAPI experience in America, structural discrimination, prejudice, and injustice that most recently manifested itself in racist attacks on Asian Americans related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas Asian American Pacific Islanders have distinguished themselves as leading researchers in science, medicine, and technology, innovative farmers and ranchers, distinguished lawyers, judges, and government leaders, in the arts, literature, and sports, as war heroes who defended our country from fascism, and peacetime healthcare heroes currently on the front lines of the pandemic. And whereas today more than 20 million Asian American Pacific Islanders live in the United States and through their actions make America a more vibrant, prosperous, and secure nation. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Kyoko Matsumoto Wright, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2023 as Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the city of Mountlake Terrace, and encourage all residents to learn more about the positive contributions of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Signed this 15th day of May, 2023 at the city of Mountlake Terrace, state of Washington. Just with me?
Do a handoff to yourself.
Okay, so next is the proclamation for the Arts Education Month, and Councilmember Rick Ryan will be reading that one.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas the city of Mountlake Terrace recognizes the arts, defined as dance, music, theater, and visual arts, as a core academic subject and an essential element of a complete and balanced education for all students. And whereas learning in and through the arts enables students to develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills, imagination, creativity, discipline, alternate ways to communicate and express feelings and ideas, and cross-cultural understanding, which supports academic success across the curriculum, as well as personal growth outside the classroom. And whereas imagination and creativity are seen as increasingly critical capacities needed for success in the 21st century as evidenced by national reports. And whereas the arts can transform our schools into havens of creativity and exploration, places where students want to learn, teachers want to teach, and all members of the learning community are more engaged and motivated. And whereas high-quality school-based arts education involves a wide range of partners, including educators, artists, and arts organizations like the Mountlake Terrace Arts Commission, community members, and other organizations. And whereas we applaud the efforts and dedication of arts educators and advocates in the city and call for school and community leaders to continue to broaden and strengthen their arts education focus to meet the goal of arts for every student. Now, therefore, the Mayor, Kyoko Matsumoto Wright, on behalf of the City Council, does hereby proclaim May 2023 as Arts Education Month in the City of Mountlake Terrace and encourage all residents to actively acknowledge the powerful role of arts education in the lives of our students, schools, communities, and workforce. Signed this 15th day of May 2023 at the City of Mountlake Terrace, State of Washington. Picture.
We're going to do a photo. Thank you. Okay, so next, the last proclamation is going to be read by Councilmember Aaron Murray, and that will be on Mental Health Awareness Month.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas Mental Health Awareness Month has been observed in the United States since 1949, and whereas millions of Americans face the reality of living with a mental health condition, and whereas the National Alliance on Mental Illness continues to fight the stigma, provide support, educate the public, and advocate for policies that support people with mental illness and their families, and whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, and citizen shares the burden of mental health issues and has a responsibility to promote mental wellness and support prevention, and whereas Mental Health Awareness Month provides the perfect opportunity to share helpful resources and information about programs and initiatives related to mental health, and whereas assistance and support is available by reaching out to the following: the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting 988, Teen Link at 866-833-6546, and the Veterans Crisis Line at 800-273-8255. Now, therefore, Mayor Kyoko Matsumoto Wright, on behalf of the City Council, does hereby proclaim the month of May 2023 as Mental Health Awareness Month in the City of Mountlake Terrace. Signed this 15th day of May 2023 at the City of Mountlake Terrace, State of Washington.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for reading this. Next is the code enforcement abatement presentation. Yes, we have to get it down in order to store it, so now you have to move it up. You have to turn it on
How's that? Yeah, better?
and get it close to you.
Closer? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, Council, good evening. I'm Sergeant Matt Porter. I'm joined tonight by my Code Enforcement Officer, Mike Paget. Just going to give you a brief overview of the code enforcement abatement process and the 4 steps that we go through, and then the current state of abatement in the city. So I pulled, for reference, one of the City Council's adopted goals, which was feeling safe and welcome throughout the community, just to try and tie in your leadership goals into what we are actually doing on the street every day. Specifically, abating code violations and nuisance conditions. That's within the goal, within the directive of that goal of feeling safe and welcome throughout the community. And so tonight, I specifically want to talk about the 4, I'll deconstruct the broader code enforcement tactics before I land on the abatement process. The first being, and I'll go through each of these in more detail, but education and voluntary compliance through education is our consistent goal throughout this process. And you'll see that the vast majority of the cases are handled in that contact with our officers. The second phase, the second tactic that we use would be a voluntary compliance agreement. And again, I'll go through these in a bit more detail. The third is a written notice of violation. And then finally, the abatement itself. So I'll quote some numbers tonight. Those are just the police department's code enforcement numbers. Those do not reflect the general code enforcement for the rest of the city. So I'm not going to talk about building codes or fire codes or business code violations. This is just the nuisance properties. The photo that you see is one of the most common complaints that we respond to, which involves vehicles parked on unimproved surfaces. And complaints come into us several different ways. They are either on view, so that means my officers like Mike or Elena are driving around the city and they see something like this and they just jump out of their car and they make contact with the owner occupant and address the situation. Frequently, these complaints will come into us by phone, so either phone call to the city council, you're the city council, the city hall, or to the police department, occasionally in person, so somebody can walk right in here and complain about a nuisance property to the front desk here or at the police department. This is a shot of the webpage, the city's webpage. Currently we're using a software package called SmartGov, so the SmartGov portal can be used to initiate a complaint. And then finally, we're evaluating a new smartphone app and looking at how that will integrate with the new software package that we're going to bring online, if we're lucky, in October of this year. That will allow anybody with a smartphone to go and stand in front of, if they want to, whatever the complaint may be, whether it's a parking complaint or a pothole, and the app will geolocate them and they can generate the complaint right there on the spot. So just from a standpoint of efficiency and follow through with service, we're looking forward to that. In 2022, code enforcement, the PD's code enforcement officers recorded 175 nuisance incidents, which is the code that we use for a nuisance event that occurs on private property. So we're not talking about parking complaints. These are strictly private property. We're currently, again, like I said, in the process of transitioning to a new software package. The idea behind that is to have one system that increases collaboration between the various city departments, so that currently the building department, the building code enforcement and fire marshal and the police, we're actually using different software. So it's kind of been a pain to integrate those two, but we're very quickly moving towards that. Michael and I have been working very hard to move their old cases into the new, into the temporary software, the SmartGov, and then that will be migrated over to the new software package. So we're just looking to improve efficiency for all of our community members. So again, once a complaint is validated, it becomes a case. And our goal is contact within 24 hours, and generally that happens in virtually every case, if not right on the spot. The initial contact and all follow-up contact, again, is intended to educate the community to gain voluntary compliance. And in many cases, our community members are just not aware that they can't park on their lawns. We're happy to let them know about that. The initial contact might be in concert with another city department. So if we need to contact the building inspector or the fire marshal because we need a subject matter expert to help validate that complaint, that is absolutely something that we do. You can think of this kind of like a verbal warning, if you will. We generally follow up with an inspection within 1 week. So we'll take the complaint, generate a case out of it, follow up in a week, and if you get what we, oh, there it is, then we're done. Right? That's all we're looking for, is just the voluntary compliance. In 85% of the cases that we took in 2022, we got compliance at this level. So it was not necessary to go anywhere beyond that. So of the 175, 85 are closed here. If there's no effort to correct the problem, our next enforcement option is still to focus on education. And in this case, it now becomes a written voluntary compliance agreement, which I'll refer to as a VCA. So that ends up being about a 4-page document. The education in this case takes the form of the various violations spelled out in a written document in the VCA that's addressed to the property owners and or the occupants, depending on, like in this case, the vehicles may be occupants and the home owned by the owner. So we're going to contact everybody in that case. We'll include photos of the violations, citations of the code that's being violated, so there's no question about our enforcement authority, specific corrective actions that the owner needs to take, and a deadline, which is generally about 30 days out. And then we follow up again in those 30 days, and we see it broadly about another 50% compliance. So of the leftover in 2022, it was 40 cases that we didn't get on the initial contact. 20 of them were handled at this level, sir.
Oh, do we have questions? Go
Yes.
ahead.
I don't think the picture's complicated, but at the same time, I'm a little confused. So the pictures that are up, I'm trusting it's the same angle or the same house, so that's not my concern. I'm looking at the white car and the gray car in front of it. Are they parked legally? I can tell the double park, if you will, might put them in a weird spot, but the black car on the inside definitely shouldn't be there because it's on grass. So I was just trying to figure out, are all four, because it's a red car, I can't tell if that's a driveway or not, so I'm just going to throw the red car on the bus and under the bus there too, to say, of those 4 cars, are any of them parked legally? Maybe that's a better way to say that.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to have my partner Mike answer that question for you. He can
Okay.
delineate exactly where the line is drawn on that.
Sure.
Do you want to pass over the microphone?
I'm Officer Badgett, City of Mountlake Terrace Code Enforcement. Thank you for having us. This wasn't my case here, but I have a good idea of what was going on. So each of these vehicles that were parked at this property were not registered to that property, which is also another violation of the city's municipal codes. So I think some of that came into play here. And it's also, again, this is where Sergeant Porter was talking about collaborating with different departments and subject matter experts. It would also, I wouldn't be able to tell you, it's not my area, but if that's an improved parking surface, that those first two, the white vehicle and the station wagon, where they're parked, if that's a legally marked area to park a vehicle, or if it falls within a code violation. But I think that was the issue here. So it was the 4 vehicles that weren't registered to the property.
Thank you.
All right.
So I think we can pretty clearly see that the parking on the grass is a no-go. And regardless, parking on a public street does require the vehicle to be current with its registration. So occasionally we'll reach an agreement with a homeowner to extend a deadline, and this is where extensions happen, is in this phase with the voluntary compliance agreement. There could be a variety of reasons why we need to see the owner or the occupant needs an extension on the issue that we're trying to resolve. And frequently with these, we see it with RVs, which it's very difficult to just push into the driveway. So sometimes repairs on those things take a while. So, excuse me, our final effort before abatement is what's called a written notice of violation. So within the cycle of the 30-day period, if we haven't seen what we're looking for from the education standpoint, we'll go to what is essentially our final written notice. It includes a history of the code violations at the parcel and the lack of compliance, and then strongly worded verbiage to include civil penalties of up to $700 a day, criminal penalties that may constitute up to a misdemeanor, and then the variety of, we're just a warning about the costs of enforcement, which for us includes personnel costs, attorney fees, documentation fees, hauling, storage, disposal, and any administrative costs incurred by the city. Those penalties are all leaned against the property when it changes hands. Again, this is just a single page of about a 4-page document. It's generally about 4 pages. That is what we hope to get. If we can't get voluntary compliance in response to the written notice of violation as required, which is a 15-day requirement, the order becomes the final administrative order of the city. From here, we receive a judicial order for abatement, and we begin the abatement process. So after the written notice of violation expires at that 15 days, that's it. We then move on. In 2022, all but one case was closed at this level without the need to go to abatement. So again, in 175 cases, we saw 2 in 2022 that went to this level, that actually went beyond the written notice of violation. One of those residents in the 21700 block of 51st was abated. This is actually a photo of that property, a before and after of that property. And this was a PG photo. I think you described it as a PG photo earlier. So it was a lot worse in other parts of the property. Okay, the last phase, and this is just regarding the abatement process itself. So state law provides the authority to law enforcement with a superior court warrant to access a private citizen's property for the express purpose of abating the described nuisance. And that's reference, if you care, RCW 748-260. We approach the judicial order service the same way we approach any warrant service. So that's why there is an armed officer there. We consider a risk assessment. So we're looking at it's a document that's filled out based on known intelligence about the property, and we account for all the threats posed or potential threats posed by the residents and the property itself. It also provides us a framework for staffing the order service. So it's the exact same process that I use when I'm generating a warrant service for detectives or patrol or for the SWAT team. We all use the same risk assessment. Once that is done, there's an operations order, which is essentially a planning process, a document that answers the who, what, why, when, where, and how of how we're going to clean up the property. There's several roles involved in that. Obviously, security, if it's a high threat area, we are having civilians working, cleaning up the property, and we do want to ensure that they're safe. As you can imagine, taking away property might upset some folks that have some claim to that property. So we're working about security. We'll staff a code enforcement case officer, so generally either Mike or Elena or both will be present to help with the warrant service. There'll be a tow company in the case like you see here where there were multiple vehicles that needed to be removed from the property, and then a junk cleanup vendor. So when we approach the vendors, we put in a request for generally about 3 to 4 vendors, and the last time we did this, we only got one that hit our criteria, which is both being responsive and competent. These are fairly large jobs, and they're just difficult to staff with the third-party vendor there. So since 2022, when we began following through with the abatement process, again, we've had 2 properties that didn't respond to our educational efforts. As I mentioned, one has been abated and is still being monitored by our multidisciplinary team, so all of the code enforcement parties in the city. And the second is a property that is scheduled to be abated in the next 30 days. And here is just a little sample of that property. And it's my understanding this car has actually been removed already, but there is quite a bit. So there's a shot on the left side with that white tarp is the front yard, and then the backyard there behind the fence. Cost estimate for this is around $4,300 plus the city personnel costs. So that's still, that number does not include code enforcement officers. That doesn't include the security, and that doesn't include any attorney's fees. Those will all be leaned against the property. There we go. Just tying it back up. There's our goals. This is how we're going to execute them, and then that are the specific tactics that we use. Again, on the abatement process, it's about 1%. 1% of the properties that we encounter, nuisance properties, end up in abatement. Again, the vast majority are handled on the initial contact, 85% of the 175 in 2022, purely by contact with our officers. We're cleaned up. I hope that answers most of your questions, and I'm happy if it generated more to answer those for you.
Are there any questions? Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you for coming before us and appreciate the overview and particularly thankful that Officer Padgett is here with us because we want you to know how much we appreciate the work that you do for us and cleaning up our city is very, I'm sure, hopefully you've heard about how much we care about this code enforcement in our city and cleaning up and are, again, very thankful. I do have a couple of quick questions and statements, I guess. Looking forward to the SmartGov app that October, you say, hopefully?
Yeah, so currently the software that we're using is called SmartGov, and that's what the city hall staff has been using. The police department was using a different software package, and in anticipation of the new software, which is not called SmartGov, forgive me, I don't remember the name of it, the new package, we started the transition early to make that migration easier. So I forced Mike and Elena to start working on the new software early just to make things a little easier.
Sure.
Yes, ultimately, we'll be able to add all kinds of nuisances or issues around the city. Folks will be able to go out there with their cell phone, GPS locate themselves. So there's a pothole right here where I'm standing, and that complaint will, if it needs to, most of them will get routed through Mike and Elena. If it's something like a pothole, it's going to go right to Public Works to fix.
Very good. It sounds like a great app and I think a very useful tool for all of us to be able to utilize. So looking forward to hearing more about that as it comes online, if you will. I'm curious about the breakdown. So 85% are cleaned up voluntarily in the first round, right? So then that left us with 40, and then out of the 40, 20 were dealt with through the second phase of the process, right? I guess a voluntary compliance agreement and then the written notice. So prior to the written notice, right? So only 20, does that about sound right? Or?
Yeah, so it goes about 85% in education, 2020, and then really it's 1%. So I didn't break out the numbers to say whether it was 20 and 19 or 19 and 20 between the voluntary compliance agreement and the written notice of violation. But
okay.
The remaining 40% are right in there.
Okay.
And it's about 50-50 on that.
Gotcha. And I'm interested in hearing more about the situations where people are unable to voluntarily comply with the situation, I guess, right? I mean, how do we have, for instance, elderly or incapacitated in whatever way? Is there a need for us to be able to provide them with some help, like some sort of volunteer crew that might be able to help them clean up their property if that's the situation? I'm just interested in how many might fall into that category.
It's difficult to say.
We need to have you talk into the.
I put it right in between the two.
I know, right, there we go. It's difficult to say, each individual property is unique in its own way, right? And so one of the benefits to, like Sergeant Porter was talking about, we will oftentimes that day the complaint comes in or within 24 hours, we will reach out to that property owner or the occupants and kind of diagnose the situation and kind of see what we're working with. I don't know if you want to talk about it a little more, Sergeant Porter. with the cops and clergy? Okay, so, but, yeah, so, I mean, it's really hard to dial in, you know, specifically, but we haven't really had any issues to this point where we've gone through the code enforcement process with somebody who is unable to do it and hold them, you know, accountable, I guess, without offering other assistance, I guess.
Okay.
So generally, we have, like I say, within the scope of the voluntary compliance agreement, we can really extend that out as far as we need to. There's been several places where the case has gone to a written notice of violation, and ultimately the threat of significant $700 a day fees was extraordinarily motivating to some folks, and then we just made the fees go away. Because again, we just want the city to look nice.
Right, right.
There is one case that we're looking at right now with a gentleman who is having a very hard time with life generally, and his property specifically. And it has been brought up within the discussions at Cops and Clergy, which I'm sure you guys are aware of, happens once a quarter, and there is some discussion with that group taking on this property as a volunteer project and involving the church communities in helping just a weekend cleanup.
Okay,
They are looking for that kind of opportunity, and
Yeah.
we're hoping to have that be another collaborative opportunity between the city and some of our community groups.
Yeah, I appreciate that thing, and look forward to hearing more about those efforts. And if there's, you know, one of the things I've talked about throughout the years is there a role for us to create a volunteer corps to help in those situations? And it sounds like there's very limited situations, which is great, but we don't want to get into a position where we're forcing somebody to do something they're unable to do. And if we can provide that help to help them clean up their property, and they're willing to accept that, then I'd really love to see us make sure that those efforts are taken. But I at the same time, for those that aren't willing to do their role, we're all anxious to move the process along and abate that property if necessary. Remind us kind of on timeline, how long does it take from when it first comes to our attention that there's a problem with this property? Break down the number of days between education, voluntary compliance agreement, written notice of violation, and abatement.
You want to speak to the property on 217 51st on start to finish on that one, perhaps?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so the pictures that were shown to you earlier regarding a property in the 21700 block of 51st Avenue West, this was a property that has affected many of its adjacent neighbors and has, I'm sure at some level, been brought to your guys' attention.
Several times.
So we've done our due diligence here, and I've personally tried working with the property owner to gain compliance. So before we started the abatement process and before this property was abated, we did everything we could with this property. And back when I first started, it was notice of violation, failure to comply, and then notice and order. We've since changed the process, but I've gone through that with them. I've issued several monetary fines to this property with no compliance whatsoever. It didn't get their attention. And at that point, I ended up charging this property with misdemeanor violations with the South District Court, where it sat there for some time. So this was all about a 2-year process to get through that. And we got to this point with the city where we kind of cleaned up and expedited this process to abatement. And that once that kicked in, it probably about 6 months from start to finish. And we gave every opportunity we could to this property owner to comply. Again, made several contacts in person, hand-delivered notices, did everything we could, and there was just no compliance with the property. So yeah, it was roughly 6 months or so from start to finish after the South District Court, after. So if that, I don't know if that helps clarify.
Well, no, I appreciate that, and we're all very thankful that we abated that property. I think, yes, we all heard about that for quite some time, and it was a problem a huge problem for the neighbors, that whole neighborhood. And so we're all very thankful that that situation has been taken care of. But I'm curious about that situation aside, because that was something else. But the how many days, so it comes to our attention, how many days does it take for us to get out and educate them, and between education and then at the point where we need to send out an agreement versus the further steps? So I'm just kind of trying to understand the breakdown of number of days or months or whatever between different steps.
So I think there's really a black and white, right? So we could go out there, respond the day we get the complaint, and we could issue a voluntary compliance agreement at that point, right? From there, they would have 30 days, like Sergeant Porter said. And really, we have the flexibility, Officer McKee and I have the flexibility if it is a unique situation where there's maybe elderly or somebody who's not capable of complying with the property within the 30-day period, we can extend that to 45 days, right? There's no written rule on that. But if we're going to be as black and white as possible, we could go out there the day of, issue a voluntary compliance agreement, give that property 30 days. If they don't comply in 30 days, we'll be out there on the 30th day, inspect the property. No compliance, we could then issue the notice of violation. At that point, they'd have 15 days, so we're at about 45 days. And then at that point, we go out on the 15th day of the notice of violation, inspect the property. If there's no compliance at that point, we could then, like Sergeant Porter said, that's kind of the final notice, right? We would then give it to Hillary, who would kind of guide us through the legal process with everything that we need and kind of go from there. So then it's in the court's hands, right? And I know that different courts vary, different timelines, different judges, so it's unknown at that point. But so you're looking at about 45 days. If you have a property that's just not responding to any notices or any attempts at contact that we make, kind of go that route. Does that help?
Yes, absolutely. That answers the question. I appreciate it. Again, thank you very much for all the work you do on behalf of the city. Appreciate
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments? All right. I think we're done. Thank you very much. All right, next is our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, and the community. Just a couple of things to share with you this evening. First, we have several council members that asked about our social media statistics for the first quarter of 2023, and I have that detailed breakdown that I'll be able to share with you later on this week, but just tonight. The most popular searches by far, whether it's a search or a download of a page or page views, are for passports and for pool and swimming and aquatics programs and recreational programs. By far, those are the most popular of any of our pages. Also, on in the middle of June, we will be we've scheduled the board and commission interview process for council members and, or for the subcommittee of council members to interview those folks and hopefully have new board and commission members on ready to go as of July 1. 17 new applicants, which is fantastic. I think that's an important thing to highlight, how many people are willing to volunteer for our community to make it a better place. So that's a great thing. And lastly, I just wanted to mention again Passport to 2044, which is the Snohomish County's program for elected officials and planning commissioners to understand the comprehensive planning process. It is very long, very detailed, and there's a lot of information. So that's an opportunity for council members to attend, I believe on May 18th from 11:30 to 1, if I'm not mistaken. But we can provide you that link to register if you'd like to. And that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is that the one you're speaking at? Okay. Any questions? Any comments? Did you have one? Okay. I guess not.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. So Next, we're going to do the council liaison reports, and I'm going to start right next to me with, yours might be short, so.
Well,
Councilmember Rory Payne Donovan.
thank you, Madam Mayor. Mine is short because I was out of town, and I don't have anything to report other than the regular meetings and the photo we took earlier today. So there you go.
Thank you. Councilmember Sonmore.
Thank you. On May 9th, I attended the Left One board meeting with Councilman Ryan, and as you know, our fire will be removed from our left board structure. And then also, I attended the Park and Rec Board, and you, at our last meeting, saw what we were looking at on the trails and what the Park and Rec Board has recommended, and we reviewed that at our last meeting. And then we'll be bringing additional information about our tree update codes and a couple other projects that the Park and Board have been looking at for a while. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. Tuesday, May 9th, I also attended the Left One Retirement Board. And then Thursday, the 11th, our work study session. 13th, Saturday, was our council retreat. And today, 6 o'clock for photos. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. Next, we go to Councilmember Woodard.
It's easy for you to say. So on the 28th, which was a Friday, that was Superheroes Day. I bring that up to say thank you to the Everett Herald, who did a feature on an article that I wrote thanking volunteers in the food banks and framing them as superheroes. So it was a repost, unexpected and awesome. So thank you for that. On the 5th, I had my one-on-one with our city manager, first of many to come. I thought it was a very good interaction, and look forward to our next one. Then that following Monday, I went to the library and listened to our mayor share a very wonderful story to kick off the month, and I will leave that there because I'm sure you will share as well. But it was an honor to be in the space with you. The next day, I had mentioned this earlier, back on Thursday, but I'm going to mention it here because of the connection point, which is I had the honor to go up and hear Arlington's State of the City address, but it was put on actually by the Stille Valley Chamber of Commerce. And so really it was just a reminder, one, you've already heard me say, I sure hope we get back into doing the State of the City addresses, but also how exciting it is it's an opportunity to partner with the Chamber. And with us having recently invested in our Chamber, maybe these two roads shall come together soon. On the 10th, attended the Coffee with the City, where our city manager got to learn that the Coffee with the City is sometimes coffee literally just with the city, but it was still a good conversation, and then we called it a day, and hopefully folks will join us. We're getting back into the rhythm of doing the Coffees with the City, so we recognize that might have thrown some people off, but we look forward to seeing you next month. And then on the 11th, not only did we have our study session, which I've heard folks mention, but before that, at the Nile, they now have Navi at the Nile, Navi being the new chef there, and then showcasing the new spaces. And I'll just leave it at, I'm in the event planning business, so I know I've often looked for rooms that could house upwards of hundreds of people, and the Nile can do that for you, but they can also make it very intimate. Then a lot of room in between that, indoors and outdoors. And it's right next to that beautiful lake I've heard about. So just kind of putting that out there that if you have not visited the Nile, this is a good chance to revisit the Nile. And on that note, for the council, I didn't quite hear it in the city manager's report, but it will come up, I'm sure, soon. If it didn't, maybe I was zoning out. But nonetheless, from our time at the Nile has reached out to us to ask if this council would be interested in physically going down there and having our own experience so that we all can see it. I know I was there, the mayor was there, I'm not sure if anyone else was able to make it. We're working through the city manager on that one, so keep an ear out for an email. It was just nice though. And then I also mentioned that from that same experience, the American Legion I don't know if I had a chance to share this with everybody, so I'm now offering this to everyone. The American Legion has offered a council, if you will, an audience, inviting us to their space. They invited me specifically, but I said, well, can I bring my friends? And they said, absolutely, of which the city manager has agreed he'd be interested in doing that, but if that's of interest to anyone else, let me know, and we'll make sure that you get in on the date as well. There will be pizza provided. And then you've heard the last pieces of that, which is Saturday. The next day was our retreat. And then yesterday, Happy Mother's Day to everybody who up here plays the role of mother or has a mother. How about that? But we'll go with, we had the honor of going to the 37th annual powwow for our Mother's Day. So just wanted to say that that was another wonderful cultural experience put on, and that one was over at Edmonds College. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 3rd, I also had my first city manager meeting, so thank you to our new city manager for extending as much time with me as he did. I promise I will try to be more concise in future sessions, but I thought it was a really great opportunity to get to know each other a little bit better and appreciate you just jumping in, you know, and tackling so many things in such a short period of time. On the 4th, I went to PSRC's Growth Management Policy Board meeting as the alternate. I will defer to Brian mostly, but my big takeaway there was that a lot happened during the legislative session. I think we all know that. There's a lot for us to respond to as a city, and they have plans to dig into that more next month. So hopefully we'll have a great update on some of those items. And I know that city staff is already looking at those things, and we'll be digging in more here in the near future. I was at our work session on the 11th, our council retreat on the 13th, took some fun photos before this meeting. And the only other thing I would share out with folks is the reminder about the cultural night that's going on this Wednesday at Mountlake Terrace High School at 6 o'clock. Again, it is a coming together of all of the communities all of the school communities in Mountlake Terrace. So our 3 elementary schools, as well as our middle school in Briar and the high school, are coming together to kind of revive a cultural night full of food and music and culture, which is something apparently that was, something that some of the schools did prior to the pandemic. And so they've come together to kind of make it a bigger and, kind of more collective, connected opportunity here as they are bringing it back. So I hope folks can join them. And that's all I think I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next will be Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yeah, following up on the PSRC's Growth Management Policy Board meeting on the 4th, we did have a great update on the legislative session. We're going to actually have a full recap during our next meeting in the first week of June. But importantly, as has been pointed out, and we're going to learn much more about the details, but there is a lot of legislation passed related to housing, including the missing middle, the ADUs, climate element, and there's going to be a lot of money available to help us with all of that. So I want to encourage us, obviously, to take advantage of the resources that are being made available for local government planning efforts, including $2.3 million for middle housing, $40.9 million for local government climate planning, $30.5 million for local permit review, and $6 million for planning for housing supply. So a lot of opportunities there for us to be able to take advantage of. Again, we'll be following up, I'm sure, with our lobbyists, with Shelley, as well as more updates during our next meeting. So you'll be hearing about us reporting on that next time. But other actions we took during our policy board meeting was recommended designation of Greater Downtown Kirkland Regional Growth Center. We had an analysis of the industrial lands and also integrating stormwater solutions into our comprehensive plans and partnering with WashDOT up to and allowing each of our local communities to prioritize up to 4 areas for stormwater retrofit projects. So we might want to partner up with them about. Both Councilmember Murray and I have forwarded information to you about that already. But if you need any more information, feel free to contact us or go straight to PSRC and the contact persons that were included in the emails there, but a lot of opportunities to take advantage, potentially opportunities we might want to take advantage of there. On the following day, May 5th, had the Snohomish County City's Executive Board meeting, where we followed up on a discussion about the previous meeting we had and the dinner and how the Economic Alliance's, I'm sorry, the PSRC's Economic Development Board and their activities play a role throughout the region, but maybe not so much directly with local government. And so looking forward to kind of working with PSRC's Economic Development Board about how we might be able to better partner and utilize those resources for economic development efforts in each of our communities. We also talked about the upcoming meeting dates. So make a note, on July 20th, we will have our legislative update from AWC and also a discussion about public safety based on particularly the Blake decision or lack thereof that hopefully is coming out tomorrow and will be officially adopted. And so we'll be able to have an update during our July 20th meeting about the ins and outs of that and what additional efforts our public safety and law enforcement community may or may not need to take and what we may need to do with our own code updates related to that. We also talked, and then October 19th is going to be the comp plan and housing discussion during that dinner. And then January 18th will be our annual meeting again for elections and kind of a legislative review of what we expect to have coming up during the next legislative session. Anyway, then we talked about our board meetings, again, regional dinners and the possibility of doing some regional, working together with cities in our, like for instance, South County area, and doing a get-together to kind of talk about different opportunities like we do, like the mayors do, and like we do with the Snohomish County, presidents and council presidents and mayors pro tem, et cetera, where we kind of have an opportunity to talk amongst ourselves, but it might be great to open up that opportunity for other council members to be able to participate and gain insight as to what our neighbors are doing in their communities. We also talked about the organization and the budget related to Snohomish County cities. On the 10th, had my meeting with the city manager. On the 11th, our city council work session. The 13th, the retreat. And before this meeting, had our pictures. So I think that concludes my update. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, one more thing.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Just following up on the passport to 2444 elected officials and planning commissioners. That is, again, May 18th from noon to 1:30 via Zoom. And if you're interested in more information, I'm a panelist on that, but if you're interested in more information about that and the discussion we're going to have or signing up and need information on how to sign up, let me know. That concludes my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, then. So for my report, on the 3rd of May, I attended the South County Mayor's meeting, and I have to say that we have a great group of South County mayors, and we really do have fun at our meetings. Let's see, and then on the 4th, I attended the Community Transit meeting, and on the 5th, I attended the Seashore Transportation Forum, and we talked a lot about updates on Sound Transit and light rail and a lot of things. And so that's really one that I really love going to. And then later that day, I attended the Homage Cinco de Mayo luncheon. And let's see, there are several other things that happened, but anyways, on the 8th, I went to the library to read a book for the Edmond School District for AAPI Heritage Month. And because I was reading a book about a little Japanese girl in America wearing her kimono to school, I decided to wear my kimono and read it. And I'm really, really happy to have seen that I had a lot of support from the city, because you all walked across the library parking lot. And so Councilmember Woodard, our new city manager, Jeff Knighton, and then we had Jennifer Jokey, and Ricky is not here. But anyways, I was just so surprised for that support. And I think it is taped and you can see it. I don't know where it is yet, but, because I'd like to see how I did. I can't remember any of it. On the 9th, I attended the Economic Alliance of Snohomish County Legislative Update on their coffee, Tuesday morning coffee. And then later that day, I was a guest speaker at the Mountlake Terrace Plaza, our retirement home right across the street over there. And it was mostly Q&A. And they had a lot of great questions to ask. And it was the first time that I was asked a lot of personal questions. They really, really wanted to know more about me. And then afterwards, they had already signed this card. And I just put it here. So they had this together, and everyone signed it. And I just wanted to just mention that it's really kind of nice. I'm going to leave it here at City Hall. But they want me to come and talk again. And also, any of the other city council members, if you want to, can go there and talk. It doesn't just have to be me. So if you want to put your name in, I'll put you together with them. Okay? Okay, then then later that day, I attended the Snohomish County Health Advisory Meeting. I'm still on the health board. And on the 10th, I attended the executive and the mayor's meeting. So this is a mayor's meeting with the executive and the staff, and then the staff leaves, and it's just the mayor and the executives. And really, I have to say the atmosphere of the mayor's meetings and the executive in this case, we all get along so well. It's just a great feeling, and it's a nice meeting to be at. Later that day, I attended the Board of Health Executive Committee meeting. And I can't believe that we're still on that one, but I think that might have been the last of those meetings. And then I also attended Coffee with the City in the evening, and it was really definitely with the city. Then the next night, before the council meeting, I did go to Navi at the Nile to meet the new caterer and all the things that they are wanting to do. And we used to have our employee breakfast there. I hope we continue to have it over there. I just remember that we did a lot of things, because we only have a few spaces here in Mountlake Terrace, and that's the Ballinger Senior Center and the library. We now have City Hall. Sometimes we can use this. And then we have the Nile. So that's it, I think. But then there are other smaller spaces like American Legion and so forth, but in the past, those are the facilities that we use quite often. And then I was at the retreat on Saturday, and that concludes my report. Okay, does anyone else have anything to add before we go to the next? Oh, next is new business, so we might as well just jump into that. Does anyone have any new business? Councilmember Woodard?
Mine's quick, actually. It's to modify my report. I, too, was at the coffee chat for the legislative update on the 9th. And then, just as a reminder, they do these every other week, and the next one is the 23rd, a Tuesday morning. And that one's on reframing it as how to deal with the housing unaffordability. But again, another housing shortage conversation. Chris Collier, and I cannot remember who the other person is, but it's always a good conversation of a very touchy subject.
All right, thank you. Anyone else with new business? I don't see any hands going up. So the next thing on our agenda is adjournment. We are adjourned.